So let's see. There's been another purge of channels on YouTube. A ton of content that I was subscribed to is no longer coming through. When I search for their channel names, they don't come up unless I happen to find an alternative, one of their backups or something that maybe I wasn't subscribed to. The war on information, which is not the same as an information war, the war on information is in full swing. We've got people who were deleted, canceled, or otherwise removed, deplatformed, as it were, for speaking their mind, being vindicated because by this time, people that were deleted or canceled or otherwise deplatformed 6 to 9 months ago, the official authoritative sources have come around to fact-based truth on some points, things that can't be denied. The people that were completely shut down for misinformation have been vindicated, but their accounts have not been returned, resurrected, reinstated. At first, people cried foul at the end of last year, and enough people were upset enough about it that something could have been done. Instead, what happened was that debacle on January 6th. And that event ended up being basically our version of the Reichstag fire. Not that it was a note-for-note recreation, not that the themes were the same at all, however. The Reichstag fire was an event that, whether it was organic, whether it was fomented, whether it was allowed to happen, whether it was manufactured, whatever, the result was the same as what we had on January 6th. And what that is the government using it in a Hegelian dialectic to justify an action. Now, in America, what the justification was is basically the militarization of the capital, the locking down of pretty much the seat of government. In Germany, in the 1930s, the Reichstag fire was, as I recall, the justification for Kristallnacht, which was the first event that was the grains of sand building to an avalanche that was the Holocaust. After that event, they went around and rounded up dissidents. Anybody that was trying to justify, or that seemed to believe that the Nazis were not legitimately elected and that they had stolen power. And that anybody who was making that claim or trying to resist was rounded up. Now, it didn't quite get to that level. However, we're hearing about the treatment of these effectively political prisoners, people that participated in a protest, many of whom are in solitary confinement right now without bail, without an attorney. Some of them have representation, and those attorneys are saying that their conditions are abhorrent. Most of these people that have been locked up for this were the folks that you saw walking by the ropes, not destroying anything. So I'll come back to that topic because it will connect. I'll just say on that topic that all of the people that are claiming that democracy is in jeopardy are the ones that seem to be actively destroying our entire way of life. That their claims are false. They are in bad faith. They are the ones who did the fortification, according to Time magazine. They are the ones who benefited from that which others have raised a complaint that is being ignored, gaslit, and discovery of which is being resisted significantly. So that brings us back around to the content creator purge. This notion of disinformation, misinformation. So yesterday was the deadline for a subpoena, a state senate subpoena to a county government committee or board, as well as a private company who is a contractor for the board and the state government. And rather than respond to the subpoena by providing items for evidence that they had originally been subpoenaed for months and months ago, the subpoena having been upheld by state Supreme Court, the consequences of contempt of this subpoena having real criminal ramifications. The things that are preventing a full forensic audit from being completed, it's already been performed, but it has not been completed, are these last pieces of information contained within, or information regarding the status and function of certain components, as well as some database lists and some passwords. They're already buying a full round of new machines, which means that no issue with corruption of the machines being examined really holds any water. Denying them access to proprietary software doesn't really apply, because the software is used in the public square of election. The fact that this technology is not transparent is an issue. Really, you've got a black box with a question mark painted on it, and the inside contents are mysterious. You do not know what they are. You do not know what the functionality, everything within this machine is. They can tell you what is inside it in a general way, but this doesn't confirm or deny any of the rumors or complaints. It doesn't assuage any of that. And of course, that's on purpose. But the problem is that having an election system that is built to be opaque on purpose is just an indication of some sort of malfeasance at play in secret. And what we're bumping up against with this is people in a public square acting affronted, saying, "How dare you call me a liar?" And it's like, okay, well, you have a right to say that. You can say that. But if somebody has proof that you lied, and then you refuse to open up or come clean about anything, but they've still got proof that you lied, doesn't matter how upset you get. I mean, you're going to convince a few people just because some folks are stupid like that. Like, oh, well, man, that person got pretty offended. They said some pretty strong words there. They must be telling the truth. How dare you question them? Like, that's how liars act. People who lie act that way. So, in any mainstream outlets' comment section that is allowed to have comments. Because remember, the White House, they don't allow comments. The government, the extension of the people, for the people, and by the people, meant to govern the people, elected supposedly by the people, uses the well-being and safety of the people as its justification for everything. They don't allow comments unless they mistakenly leave the comments open on one video. They do not allow comments. And I think sometimes when they do leave the comments open on a video, I think it's so that they can round up names. Let people get in there, say what they want to say. It's all negative. What was it? Yesterday's White House press briefing got re-uploaded, edited down so that the live stream will begin shortly. Stuff was gone from it. And after the edit and the upload of a basically new video where your likes and dislikes get reset, came to, what was it, 1,000 to 100. Roughly, there was about 1,500 dislikes and about 111 likes, and this was several hours after the re-upload. The actual thing had gone up some point earlier in the day. Usually it happens about 11 o'clock Central Time. That would be, I guess, noon in DC. So they know that we know. They know that a lot of people are like, hey, wait a minute. No matter what you put on your fake news channels, no matter what narrative you draw up and present, no matter what you tell everyone, no, this is how it is. You're wrong. It's misinformation, disinformation, fake news. Get your facts straight. They know that we know. There is no pretending. They know that we know. So then you watch their reaction. Will they acknowledge that they know that we know? Or will they continue to pretend? What liars do is continue to pretend. What honest people do is say, oh, it seems like you guys think this thing is a thing, so let's look into it. That would be honest. Now, in the case of the only forensic audit currently to have been performed on an election, they are at an impasse because they have got a significant number of, how shall I put this? They've got a conclusive, firm, final count of the total number of ballots cast. And it does not line up with the total number of votes counted. The problem with this is that if they have the devices, the passwords and databases, that etc., that have been subpoenaed now twice, an updated, more specific subpoena has also been ignored, as well as a bunch of really goofy defamatory letters in official capacity from the company, from the board, and from their lawyer, literally referring to the forensic audit as a Never Never Land fantasy. These are grown-ups. These are adults calling a process, an event, Never Never Land fantasy in official correspondence. That is an attempt to discredit, obviously, but think about that. These are grown-ups. In the world of grown-ups, when I was a kid, I was told that you're supposed to own your mistakes. You are supposed to admit fault if you do something wrong and get called on it. That you are supposed to find out what you did wrong and make it right. Attempt to not repeat that in the future. So it would seem to me that in the world of adults, the way things ought to be running is, if you have nothing to hide, as the same people that make the laws and the people working on the election process and everything, if they were to send the police to your house, those people would say, well, if you have nothing to hide, you should let them in. I'm not a proponent of that when it comes to personal privacy. However, when it comes to government functionality, there's no excuse not to. There really isn't. The only reason that you would want to obfuscate or prevent transparency and finding out what went wrong and who did what and why is if you are in on the fix. It's the only reason that you would do that. So they've been waging smear campaigns. They've been putting out mainstream narrative fake news, making unfounded claims and saying things that aren't true. They focus on the experience level, or rather the lack of experience in their words, of the company performing the first forensic audit of an election ever performed. For their lack of experience in performing forensic audits on elections. The audits have never been done before. How can you have experience if it's never been done? That's like the Wright brothers built an airplane, but they had no experience. They had to learn, figure it out. By the end of it, their plane flew. Now, in the case of this deal going on in Arizona, the companies that are involved in this are involved in auditing businesses. So they are familiar with the process of running numbers, of making, of seeking out fraudulent receipts and such. That is their job. That is their expertise and their experience. So this is what I mean by some smears. Everything that is coming out in the mainstream about that audit is the same. So, as time has gone on, people have not backed down. Now, you can keep deleting channels, you can keep whatever, but everybody is mumbling and whispering to each other in person now. They're concerned that with the COVID misinformation on your text messages looking like it's going to get edited or deleted or failed to send, what about other misinformation, according to the government? And the government, which is power, wants to retain power, seems to have a life and a mind of its own when it comes to this. If its power has been granted falsely through improper means, it's not going to relinquish that. Government does not relinquish power easily, if at all. That's why keeping your essential liberty and not worrying so much about your coveted safety is kind of a no-brainer for me. The liberty. So now we're looking at somewhere first or second week of August, there should be some type of information released, even though the argument will then be, and I'm calling it here, this is the prediction. The argument will be that because the final subpoenaed items and information were not provided, the forensic audit could not be fully completed. Therefore, the results of the forensic audit cannot be trusted as accurate. And this will be said by the same people who refused to hand over the subpoenaed items and information for which completion could then take place. Those same people will levy that, but it will be their fault. It's a matter of how they're going to cover and spin that fact, because people are going to know. We'll see what the legislators in their state do moving forward, whether anything will ever come of this, because a lot of people are of the opinion that not only are our elections a farce, meaning our representation is not really representation. We're paying taxes, right? That was the whole founding of the country thing, was based on taxation without representation not being okay. That some point here in the next couple of weeks is when that information is supposed to become public. And if they keep holding up the process, eventually some information is going to come out. And they're going to use this bogus argument. But regardless of that, you're going to have a lot of other information. And then, of course, when they level their accusations of this is incomplete and false because it doesn't have this required information to cap it off, then it would come back to say, okay, so why didn't you provide that information when we asked for it twice with subpoenas, which means we weren't even asking, we were demanding. Maybe something will come of that. That can be parlayed in the public. It's about keeping the public interested, because in the meantime, they're talking about possibility of lockdowns. I noticed on Sunday that there was a ton of businesses closed on a Sunday evening, like restaurants, before 9 o'clock. Before 9 p.m., drive-through places were closed. Possibly were just never open that day. And I don't think they're really having a worker shortage in my city. In the state, I believe they already ended the unemployment benefits like 2 months ago. So the only other thing I could think was the news is talking about Delta and how fucking scary it is. Now, I'm not coloring my reality with fear while I walk around, so I'm just still doing the things like I do and, monitoring my own health, but not, viewing the world as if everything is an enemy. Meanwhile, I gotta wonder how many people are believing the shtick, are seriously like, are we getting, I noticed that Walmart still isn't 24 hours and none of the stores are open late. It's like, why don't you want people out at night? So, Sunday evening, in time for everyone to get to bed early, to get up early to go to work, how 1950s. But that's not what anybody's doing. Businesses, the factories, there's still stuff that's open at night. It's just that nothing's open to service anyone except for a couple gas stations. So we're returning to this lesson to business at night thing for a lot of places. They're threatening lockdowns because of the new variant. The timing of these new lockdowns and this new variant is such that the threat of the variant has grown as the threat of exposure of the truth has grown. And truth is infectious. I suppose there's a nice metaphor to that. So in closing, consider that. Everything in the news cycle right now is purely for the purpose of having you worry, concern, or argue with your neighbors and friends about literally anything except for what is going on in Maricopa County. And as a result, will be going on in the entire state of Arizona, and as a result, will be going on in a number of states. Right now, only one comprehensive forensic audit of a county has occurred. And, however, at this point, the beginnings of forensics in Georgia, there are 3 or 4 other states that their legislatures are fighting and working against the machine, against the system, to make sure that this is legit or not. And in the meantime here, even the people that went from at least Biden's better than Trump to, oh God, what have I done, to this is bullshit, to, maybe that guy did not legitimately get more votes than the first black president, who also made the record for getting the most votes. Just a thought.